Welcome back to the JB Sports Podcast. Today is Saturday, December 27th, and we are back for another pod. It's just your boy today, Solo Dolo. Joe going by himself today. Due to the fact that me and Jace had a little bit of the sparring match last pod, and then it was been Christmas. Honestly, we're kind of over that at this point. It's more about the fact that holidays, we just had Christmas a couple days ago. Jace is actually currently getting ready for a move, so I just think there's a lot going on. Couldn't make it happen, so I figured I could just come on here, kind of go by myself. It really ain't a lot to talk about. It's mostly just the games from Christmas a couple days ago, which really not all that impressive, but most of those games are kind of garbage. And then we have the rest of our picks for the rest of the games, and then there's a couple of different stories to talk about, so nothing too big. So I figured I could just kind of go on my own, let Jace have the time to go and do the things he has to do, and that'll be it. So hopefully I won't take all that long on today's pod. Hopefully I won't take all that long, but I always say that, but never can guarantee it, because it is what it is. If I go on tangents, I go on tangents. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started here. So when it comes to college football, which there's a lot of bowl game stuff going on, so I'm never going to be, I'm not as, ever since the playoff came out, the playoff started, the 4-team and then especially the 12-team last year, the way I see it is that, there's so many games that actually mean something now. It is not just it is not just 3 games anymore. It's now, so many more games through the 12-team playoff that now have real stakes added to them. So when you look at those games that have something to really strive for, and then you look at the rest of the college football bowl slate, it just doesn't seem like it makes any sense for a lot of those other games. Obviously, if there's a good game on, I'll be more than happy to be one of those guys to watch it. But as to whether I'm looking at these games and saying, "Oh, I have to go," I'm glued in, I'm just that's not necessarily where I'm at. Even a game, even today, right? You have Clemson and Penn State playing each other today in the Pinstripe Bowl, and what does it effing matter? Penn State has a new head coach. I'm not even sure if he's coaching in this game or not, or they're just gonna let kind of whatever interim coach do his thing, and then have Matt Campbell take over as the head coach after. But I don't care. This Penn State team is 6-6, the Clemson team 7-5, and to be honest, a lot of these players on both of these teams are probably either going to move in the transfer portal or not be. Years ago, the bowl games, even if they didn't really have any real stakes to them as to having a chance to win a national title, the players that you'll see in these bowl games, usually if they're going to be studs or they're young players that really haven't played all year, this is a game where they get to get a lot of practice time in before the bowl game. They get to get into this bowl game and kind of have a little bit of a showcase that leads to what it'll be like once they are starters for that same team the year after, right? But with the portal and everything like that is unless, let me think, how do I want to put this? Obviously you can keep these players, so that is not necessarily a thing, but even if these players do show out in these bowl games, there's a chance that they just have to go in the portal because there's a team that calls saying, "Hey, we saw what you did there in that bowl game. If your team that you're with is not willing to pay you enough money, we'll pay you a big old bag to come and play for us off of just one game of really watching you play." So it kind of creates a situation where if you are a team that has a young player that you think you really see a future in, do you even want to give them that opportunity to really show out in the bowl game where there's going to be people watching? Because if the wrong person sees it and decides, "Hey, I'm going to call the GM of such and such college football team and say, 'Hey, you got to go look at this guy. He had a really good bowl game. I think he could be a good addition to our team.'" That could be something that happens. But again, I just think maybe the argument against that is that the fact that if that player doesn't get that opportunity in that bowl game, maybe they think they don't have an opportunity to get a starting spot in the next year anyway. So I guess a double-edged sword, but it's just the way I see it, it's just like what it used to mean was that these players got to have a showcase. Like I go back to the what was it, the Rose Bowl? I go back to like what is it, 4 or 5 years ago now, when Ohio State went to the Rose Bowl against Utah, right? Because we had just missed the playoff, and CJ had just that was his first year as a starter for Ohio State, and they had just missed the bowl game, missed the playoff, and they were kind of doing it because we had just lost to Michigan. Didn't make the Big Ten championship game. Didn't get to the bowl. Didn't get to the playoff, but we got to go play in the Rose Bowl against Utah. So you have Utah, CJ Stroud, his first year. We know he's coming back for another year. You have JSN, who's in his he's in his second year, but it's his first year as like a real like he's the guy. And guess who you have as the opposite receiver of him? Because think about the receivers that didn't play in that game. It was Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. Both of them had played all year for the Buckeyes, and then decided, hey, we have to get ready for the draft. We're not going to play in this bowl game. It doesn't have any stakes, so it's fine, right? So I'm cool with that. I'm never going to be the guy to sit there and look at a player that has a chance to go to the draft and do all those things and not wanting to play in a bowl game that doesn't really mean anything. I'm never going to look at them and say, hey, you're doing something bad, okay? But here's my thing. As a recruiting guy that follows it a lot, because those two wide receivers didn't play, guess which wide receiver had a chance to go out there and be the number 2 opposite of JSN and go out and show out and be, and like that got to be his statement game to start to kind of show the Buckeye fans around the world like, hey, I'm next. It was Marvin Harrison fucking Jr. That's what that game meant. That game got to be a chance for Marvin Harrison Jr. to be on the other side of JSN, and he got to go out there and show. I think he had like 2 or 3 touchdowns that day. And here's the thing. He had those touchdowns. It didn't take away from JSN because JSN had like the most productive wide receiver day of a Big Ten wide receiver, I think, in Rose Bowl history. So just like the way you look at it is like Marvin Harrison got his opportunity to go out there and be that guy along with JSN, along with CJ Stroud. And that got to be his platform to then set himself up for the next year, where people were looking at Marvin Harrison coming in saying he's about to be a superstar along with JSN. Little did we know JSN was going to get hurt very early in that year. Marvin Harrison was going to get thrusted into the wide receiver 1 role, and he flourished and he did an awesome job. But that's what those bowl games used to mean if they didn't necessarily have the going for a national championship mantra on them. But that's not necessarily the case anymore because of how things have changed, how there's portal stuff going on. And like right after these bowl games, the portal opens up. So like there's just a lot of different things outside of the bowl games that kind of muddies the water a bit. And the way it just doesn't, the bowl games outside of the playoff doesn't have the same spark it once had. The same spark. I'm not saying they won't be good games. I'm not saying that teams won't try. I'm just saying that when it comes to all the little like ancillary things that you looked at these bowl games and said that could be an opportunity for younger guys and for all that, on top of the fact that it's a lot of things that kind of take away from what these bowl games used to mean when they were just like, hey, you got to see all these crazy cool matchups and that would be fun. I just feel like the playoff and everything else is kind of taken away from that. But yeah, that's all I got on my bowl game rant. It's just again when the games pop up and they're good, I'll watch them. But for the most part, a lot of them are just going to be playoff games, and that's what I'll be locked into. But who knows? It's fine. I'm never sitting here. I'm a big college football fan. I think if I have to put it in a percentage of how locked in I am on college football in comparison to most average person, I think I'm in the top like 10, 15%, right? Which I think where I lack a little bit is I lack a little bit in the history department. Not history, but like the pageantry, right? I'm not as locked in on the pageantry of some things about college football that I do very much admit that make college football special in comparison to the NFL. The rivalries being like ride or die, the most important thing you'll die over. Again, I have my Ohio State versus Team Up North rivalry, but like other than that, I'm not like, even that game has taken a little bit of a hit for me over the years because I think I've come to the realization that like championships mean more to me than that game. Like, I'm never going to be that guy. And I feel like I do have to give some people that credit that they are so locked into the history and, like, they're so ride or die with the history of it, the pageantry of it, that maybe some of the newer concepts of playoffs and all this other stuff doesn't matter to them as much. And I do give them the credit that is even deeper of a meaning to that, like, meaning in general than what I have. But again, I still consider myself like a top 10, 15% fan of college football. I'm just not like taking that next step of being all locked into on the pageantry and the past of it. Like, again, as long as I've been an Ohio State fan, I've been locked in. But it's just I'm not, and I'm not to mention I'm not as locked in on every single rivalry around college sports. I'm not. I think I've made this case before. I am more like when it comes to Ohio State, I think I'm a 1% type of fan. I really do think so. But when it comes to college football, I just don't think I'm that locked in on everything that is college football in the same way that a lot of other people are. The Josh Pates of the world, where he talks about like what he cares most about is what happens from week 1 to week 12 rather than what happens in the postseason, in the playoff, and doing all of that. That's what matters to him most. I'm not necessarily there. I care about week 1 to week 12 when it comes to Ohio State and like watching some of these matchups as they go along, but like living and dying with all of it outside of Ohio State, not necessarily. Again, if Ohio State survives, I'm willing to let all the rest of college football go down. Like, I really am. Like, Ohio State means that much to me, even more than what college football is in general. So, that's all. That again, I said before, that was the ending of my rant, that I had a little bit more. But that truly is the ending of my college football bowl game rant. If your team has gone out there and playing an extra game, you get to go watch them, have fun doing so. If not, I'm not going to sit there and look at these people as if they're crazy if they say, "Hey, I don't care about watching Penn State at 6-6 and Clemson at 7-5 playing each other at noon on a Saturday on the 27th of December." I'm not gonna down anybody for having those type of feelings about that game. That's all I got. All right, so other stories when it comes to college football, real quick before we transition to the NFL. Michigan, I'll call them by their name because again, there's no fear of them, so I'm gonna call them by their name on the pod because it's just easier that way. They have hired Kyle Whittingham as their new head coach on a 5-year deal. And this has been a long saga. I think this has been I think they fired Sharon Moore on December 10th. And it is now, when the news came out, I think this was yesterday, so December 26th. So a little over 2 weeks, Michigan has been anxiously, like frantically trying to find their next guy. They were waiting on potentially Kalen DeBoer, who was coaching Alabama in the playoff, and they were hoping that he would fail in that first game against Oklahoma. That would then give them the opportunity to go try to give the full court press to Kalen DeBoer, and hopefully he would say yes to them. Not only did he announce that he was saying no, but then he won that bowl game against Oklahoma. So now he's in the second round of the playoffs, so it kind of took him out of the race altogether. Their second guy, who was like a hot board candidate, the second guy in the hot board candidate for that team up north is Kalen DeBoer, Kyle Whittingham. Nope, not Kyle Whittingham. Who was the other guy? Hold on, I suck. I had his name and then I didn't. Let's see. Who was the other guy? Hold on. Kenny Dillingham. Sorry, too many Ks. Kenny Dillingham was their kind of like their second option, and he had said no. He pretty much took the Arizona because they offered him an extension. He took the extension, got a pay raise, got a raise in the pool for his coaching assistants, so they were able to get more money out of it. And he pretty much kept claiming that he was never offered the job from Michigan, which kind of comes out and makes sense because they were waiting on Kalen DeBoer and hoping they could hit a home run hire by getting him from Alabama to come back to the Midwest and go coach at the University of Michigan. So then he's taken off the board because Kenny Dillingham was tired of waiting. Even if he was waiting for an opportunity to take the job, They team up north took a little too long. He decided to stay home at Arizona State, and he's good where he's at. And then after those two guys, it's like, who else do they have an opportunity to go get? They had been taking so long. There was nobody. All the guys that you would think that would be like home run hires for that team of North to try to go get, they had either already doubled down on where they were at and took more money and stayed and took an extension, or they'd already gotten a different job. So now the whole saga over these last 10, 15 days, sorry, that would be 16 days, was, hey, what are they going to do? Are they going to stick with their interim guy? I think his name is Biff Poggi, as a guy for at least another year, and then try to have another full-blown coaching search going into next offseason? Or are they just going to try to go take whoever they could possibly get? And it was looking real bleak as to who they were going to get, whether they would actually be worthy enough of being the coach at one of the top universities in the country, right? Especially when it comes to football. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're like a top 5, because I just don't think so. But as a brand, they're top 5, top 10 without an issue. But as a football program, I'm not willing to go there and say that they're a top 5 school. But as a brand, there is no question that it's one of the stronger brands out there. And it is definitely a spot that has all the resources in the world. They've gone through all their shit. They're like, everything in that football program needs to really be refreshed, revamped, kind of like starting everything from scratch because of how much craziness has gone on there ever since, Harbaugh was there and kind of did what they did to go win a national title. And then everything has been falling apart at the seams ever since. So what they needed was a guy that can come in and that can maybe just is a good head coach and that can kind of reset I'm not going to say integrity, but like he brings a credibility with him to that job that I just don't think they had really any other opportunity to get with anybody else they could have hired for that position, that at least that had that was open, right? So here comes Kyle Whittingham. So that is announced yesterday. He's there, a 5-year deal. He is the former Utah head coach. He had been one of like the most longest standing head coaches in all of college football coming into this year. And I think it was a couple weeks ago where they decided that Kyle Whittingham was stepping away from Utah, which was always kind of like hinted at, like, this is not Kyle Whittingham saying he was retiring. This is him stepping away because he feels like he's not welcome to stay at Utah any longer, because I think Utah and their brass, they wanted to change in the lifeblood of what that program is, because you've had the same guy there. I think he's like been there over 20 years, something like that. Hold on, let me see. How long? Including 2008. He had been there. Let's see. He's 66. Let me see. He's like the 4th oldest head coach in all of college football. 77. He was there for over 20 years. He was there for 21 years at Utah. So I can get the idea that maybe Utah just kind of wants a little bit of a change of pace. He's a little bit older, so they're like, hey, we're going to have to find a new guy eventually anyway. And maybe they were just like, hey, maybe it's time for you to go. And they considered it as like him walking away instead of them firing him, so it makes it look a little bit better. But now Whittingham is going in, taking another job at the University of Michigan. So now like comes into effect that like maybe this wasn't a mutual decision. It's more of like Utah saying, hey, get out or we're going to kick you out. And there are some Utah fans out there that are kind of upset because of how good Kyle Whittingham has been for Utah over the last 20 years. But there are some people that are like, hey, things are starting to go stale anyway, and things have kind of taken a little bit of a downturn over the last couple of years, and maybe it's just time for us to kind of have a big scenery change type of thing. And now you have Kyle Whittingham going to University of Michigan. And this is what I'll say. Might there have been a little bit of a downturn coming at Utah? Yeah, for sure. But I also think now that him going to University of Michigan is a little bit of it's a revamp for him. I do think it gives him an opportunity to go out there and be at a place that I think in general has more resources than what he had at Utah. There is going to be more money behind the University of Michigan football program than there was Utah. He might have access to different athletes at the University of Michigan that he wouldn't have had access to at the University of Utah. And the one thing that did make me make me scratch my head a little bit is that some people were like talking about how he's going to be able to bring like all the Hawaiians to the big old offensive the big old offensive linemen that are all Hawaiians, like they bring them all to Utah. And I'm like, well, bring them all to Michigan. And I'm like, well, no. The reason why Utah is such an attractive place because it was close to where they were coming from, obviously in Hawaii, and usually in Southern California and all that. But going all the way to University of Michigan probably isn't going to be as easy. But I just think in general, when you Kyle Whittingham coming, he is a really good head coach. He is an obvious upgrade over what Sherrone Moore was willing to do for Michigan over the last couple of years since he's been there. And then I also think as an integrity spot, if they're really looking for someone to try to get them back into the good graces of being able to say they're Michigan men and they're up front and they're honest and they're going to do things the right way, Kyle Whittingham has been doing that at Utah for 20 years. So maybe, again, I think the coaching is what should matter most because let's be honest, the Michigan men, the upright, they're honest, smart, distinguished individuals, I think that's been taking a hit over the last 3-4 years now, and I don't think that should be one of their number one priorities when it comes to getting a new head football coach. Obviously, you don't want your head football coach to be an absolute terrible person and to be doing the worst and cheating and all of that, which, again, they've already had a coach that was cheating. Nobody wants to talk about that, though. But go get a good head football coach, and as long as he is not the worst person of all time, I think that should be good enough, and I think they got that in Kyle Whittingham. And I think he's a little bit even more of a plus when it comes to the integrity and his reputation as a human, on top of being a really good head football coach. And I feel like that's a lot more than the University of Michigan could have ever asked for. And did it come down to he may have been the best only option because of what his situation was at Utah? Yeah, for sure. But I just think that I just feel like he kind of checks a lot of boxes for them in a way that it was going to be very hard for anybody else to. And do I think it's going to be a long-term answer for the University of Michigan, Kyle Whittingham? Maybe, maybe not. He's 66 years old. That's still relatively young in the college. I'm not saying young, but it's not like old man Joe Pa type of thing, right? I do think he can. Heck, why am I forgetting his name? That's not good. It's, why am I forgetting his name? Hold on. It's, Vegas. It's Pete Carroll. So Pete Carroll is the head coach in the NFL for the Raiders right now, and he is, I think he's 70 something. He's 74 years old. Again, he's a very young 74. I think he's really taken care of himself over the years. So maybe he is not necessarily the best one because who knows? Again, I think he's kept himself in peak physical condition. I think he's done a lot of good things to kind of keep himself being as young and as vibrant as he has been over the years, especially in his older age. But there's the guys coaching at 74 years old right now in the NFL. Again, it's a little bit easier coaching the NFL by comparison to college because of the calendar and all that. But it's just, there's older guys coaching out there. So 66 is not necessarily the oldest you could possibly be. And I think Kyle Whittingham knows how to head coach football. Will his message get to the type of players that he wants to get at the University of Michigan? That is a question to remain to be seen. He's going to have his opportunity to go to those players in that football program and give his message. And if they like it, they'll be cool. They'll stay. And if they don't, they'll hit the portal. Or if they don't like his messaging, or if they don't like him as a head coach, or if there's a bag coming their way from somebody else, from another school, they'll be out of there. So I think the only thing that will prove as to how good of a hire this is time. What coaching staff he's going to hire, who's going to have around him, both offensively, defensively, and kind of getting things going there, and what they do in the portal to supplement that team, because it's going to take a hit. It is. It's going to take a hit no matter whether it's a mass exodus or whether it's some of your best players kind of leaving and just you still have more of a base team to play with. That's the question that remains to be seen. But you are going to take a hit with people leaving going into the portal. So are Kyle Whittingham and whatever staff he puts together able to bring in guys from the portal that'll keep them relevant, that'll keep them as a good football team, and like that, will they be able to like do it that way? Because when it comes to a recruiting class, that's pretty much over at this point. There is no recruiting this year's players coming out of high school. It is all about doing the portal for the next year or two and trying to get the recruiting from high school back up, because they're going to have a new coaching staff that's going to have to reestablish themselves to a lot of young high school players that have a lot of leverage right now. So, and a lot of other teams that are looking for their services. So, I just think it's going to be a lot for Whittingham to kind of figure out. He's a really good head coach. He's done it for so long. I'm not going to sit here and say that he can't, but I think it is a unique challenge with doing what he's about to do. And again, if anybody can do it, it's probably him. But there are some real questions about it that, like, is this a long-term answer or is this another short-term answer that as soon as a better guy comes along, they're going to drop Whittingham and take that guy? I don't know. A lot of those questions have yet to be seen. So, again, when I look at Whittingham, I think he brings more credibility. I think he's a better head coach. But do I think he's going to be the guy to turn it all the way back around and like from day one? And I just don't think so. And I think me as an Ohio State fan, having Ryan Day on my side as my head coach, I don't think Whittingham's a better coach than Ryan Day or anything like that. The game I talked about with against Utah that Ohio State was in the Rose Bowl, guess what coach we faced? We faced Coach Whittingham, and we absolutely nuked them. Well, it was a back-and-forth affair, but Ohio State scored a lot more points, so it was what it was. But, like, no, I'm not shaking in my boots that they got a much better head. I'm not shaking my boots that he's going to turn the tide back around where Michigan's going to dominate the next 5-10 years. But I think he's good. He's a good head coach. He really is, and I think there's going to be a lot of other things that if he doesn't succeed, I don't think it'll be because of him. So that's about it on the Kyle Whittingham stuff. Good that they finally have a head coach. I'd be more than happy if they don't have a head coach for the rest of the time. But again, that was never going to truly happen. So let's go ahead and go on to the next story here. I'm only going to mention this for a second because I don't necessarily have a lot of like really long and drawn out thoughts on this. But Texas is having a little bit of a mass exodus at the running back position from their school, all going into the portal. So Quintravion Wisner, who is the leading back for Texas this past season, has announced his plans to go into the portal. And this marks the fourth running back from that roster that's saying they're going to go into the portal. And that includes him. That includes backup C.J. Baxter, Jarrett Gibson, and Ricky Stewart Jr., which I don't know as much about him. But those are four backs on their roster that are all going into the portal. Which is kind of crazy because it's like Texas is one of those places that if they want to keep you, money's not ever the issue, right? So I don't think it's a money thing that they're deciding to leave there to go to somewhere else. The way I look at it is based off the way that this season had played out for Texas, and now you have Arch kind of struggling throughout the year, getting better as the year gone along, and then now he's announced he's coming back, so he'll be back at University of Texas next year. And their offensive line being very young, but they're inexperienced, and they've gotten better throughout the year. And I think, again, they're not like superstars yet, but they've shown some progress throughout the year to be able to run the football a little bit better. And if anything, running the football was the best thing that Texas could do throughout this season because of how ass Arch was throughout the year throwing the football. So my question is this all of these players understanding that the running game is not going to get any better and they see a better opportunity somewhere else? Is this Texas telling these players like, hey, you're not good enough and we're going to bring some guys in the portal over you and like have a guy ready to go? Is this Texas telling them to get their way out and go to the portal that way? I don't know. It's just when you have so many guys leaving one position room to leave, it's just a very precarious situation because because the way I think about it is that if you're Texas and you're telling these players like, hey, we're going to go get somebody else through the portal, there's no guarantee that you'll get the guy that you want, right? Like when you go into the portal looking for somebody and you think you're going to give somebody a number and they're going to say yes because this is the University of Texas and we have a lot of money and we have everything that a great running back would possibly need. There's no guarantee that player takes you. There might be another team that wants to give him more money. There may be like they may look at Arch and say, I don't believe that's the quarterback that'll help me be able to be the best running back I can be, or if they don't like the offense. So like there's a lot of different things that may keep a player from wanting to pick Texas other than money. And again, money is never going to be an issue because I think Texas is one of those schools. They just have as close to an endless supply of cash as you could possibly find in all of college football. So I don't think it's because of money, but I think there's players that understand there's a lot more than just the biggest bag you could possibly get. And maybe it's not going to be as simple as just we're going to go get the best running back to come in and be the guy over you. And I just think it's not necessarily that simple. But if you have all those four guys leaving, I feel like there has to be some sort of confidence from Texas that they can get whatever guy that they want in the portal. But I'm just like, I don't know. I think is that confidence misguided is the question I'm thinking of here. Should they be that confident that they can just get whatever guy that they want? Or maybe this is just a player-led, like, hey, we all understand what our role is in this offense going to be, and it's not good enough, so they all just decide to leave all at once. I don't know. But if I had to guess it, I'm like, if Texas wanted to keep somebody, they'll keep them. So it just makes me think that Texas kind of told these guys to get out the door, and I'm just not sure if that'll be a long... Heck, even the guy you bring in from the portal, there's no guarantee they fit your squad. Like, think about Oregon, and they brought in the one guy... Why am I forgetting that running back's name? He was the guy from Tulane that was, like, awesome. He was, like, a very awesome running back. Everybody thought he was going to be the leading guy for them this year. And they gave him a bag to go there. And then he was, like, the third or fourth string guy on their roster and barely played at all. And that dude was awesome at Tulane. There was a whole line of teams looking for his services. And he chose Oregon because it's a big bag and he thought that was going to be the opportunity for him. And it didn't work out. So, like, even getting the best running back on the market doesn't necessarily guarantee that it's going to be a fit and that things work out and that it's just going to be an automatic. It's not like bringing in these guys from the portals, like bringing in a perfect puzzle piece that's guaranteed to fit and like that help your team. That's just not the case. I just feel like it's a very weird situation going on at Texas, with all those players from one position room leaving all at the same time. It is. It's just a little weird. And then let's see here. I don't want to talk about any of the college football playoff games that are happening in the second round yet because we're going to do another pod on Tuesday. That'll give me the perfect opportunity to make my case about what's going on with those games and make my predictions. So we'll wait for that. And then Jason will be back next week, so I want to be able to get his opinions on those games as well. So we'll wait till Tuesday for that. And there's no other stories I really want to talk about with college football. So, all right. So that's all the college football talk I wanted to do today. Let's go ahead and get to the NFL. We'll go ahead and start with the games that happened on Christmas. Again, it's not all that much, but, we'll start with that first. Then we'll get to any of the stories that I want to talk about with the NFL, and then we'll get to going through the rest of the games, making picks. I do have all Jason's picks for those games, so we won't be without those. So let's go ahead and get to it. So the games on Saturday, well, at least on Thursday, on Christmas, right? Let me get to those. So the first one was Dallas at the Commanders. This was at 1:00 on Christmas. You have Cowboys winning that game 30-23, and this was kind of, do I want to say the best game of the day? I kind of do want to say the best game of the day. This was the best game. At least it was like relatively decent football being played. Yeah, I would say probably the best game of the day was this first one between Dallas and the Commanders. Dallas won the game 30-23. It was a relatively close matchup, honestly, throughout most of the game. You have Dak, 19-37, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks. Dallas ran the football very well, over 200 yards rushing. Malik Davis was the leading rusher in this game. He had 20 carries for over 100 yards. Javonte Williams usually the leading back for them. I think he had an injury or something like that, so he wasn't able to play as much. But he had 13 carries, 54 yards, and a touchdown. And then the guys receiving the ball, I think, had a really, like, Kevontae Turpin, 1 catch, 86 yards, and a touchdown. Not a usual guy when it comes to getting a big play and all that. But, he, again, an 86-yard touchdown catch is an awesome play that happened in that game. It was very good. George Pickens, 4 catches, 78 yards. He still came out and played well. CeeDee Lamb, 5 for 46. Not necessarily as productive as he usually is, but, again, wasn't like life or death because they still won the game. And then they just had a bunch of dudes get passes. Brevin Spanford, Jalen Tolbert, Luke Schoonmaker, Hunter Lepke, like Jake Ferguson. There's Jake Ferguson, their normal, like their leading tight end. He got 1 touchdown catch and then left the game pretty early, so he didn't even finish the game off because of injury. But the way this game started, I felt like in the first half, like it was Dallas like 24-10 by the time halftimes came up, and it felt like Dallas was going to be able to run away with this game. And then the second half, Dallas kind of cooled off offensively, wasn't able to get as much done. Washington came out in that third quarter, scored 10 points to Dallas's 3, and kind of got back into the game. And then in that fourth quarter, Washington wasn't able to get that final push to kind of come back and really tie the game up to win it. But it was just a very decent game because here's the thing. When you have Washington come in that game, like they had Josh Johnson as their starting quarterback. Like they didn't have – I thought that they could have even gotten better quarterback play if Marcus Mariota came out and played. Josh Johnson, 15-23, 198 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 picks. And like me and Jace were like watching this game on Christmas, and we were like, Josh Johnson's still playing? Because he's been a part of the NFL for a while as a backup, and we're sitting there like, we were surprised he's still around. But again, he's like nowhere near, even though Marcus Mariota is not a guy that you could really consider being like a starter in the NFL as of this point. But he's leagues better than what Josh Johnson put out there on Thursday. And I think if Marcus Mariota, he brings a little bit more of a running threat, he's able to do a little bit more of that. He's a good, and he has a good rapport with the wide receivers on this team because guess what? He's been playing a lot more. So I just feel like if Marcus Mariota would have played, let alone if Jaden Daniels would have been healthy enough to play, I feel like this could have been a lot better game. But because Josh Johnson was the unfortunate starter, not unfortunate for him, but unfortunate for fans of football because he's just not as good at the quarterback position, it kind of just took away from what this game could have been. Because even with him at the quarterback position not really playing all that well, Washington ran the football relatively well. Who is it? Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt was the leading rusher for Washington in this game. He had 11 carries for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. He averaged almost 10 yards a carry. Deebo Samuel had a couple rushes for 25 yards. Deebo honestly had a decent game. He had those rushing stats I told you about. And then he also had another 2 catches for 68 yards. Terry McLaurin, 5 catches for 63. The tight end had a couple catches. Ben Sinnott had a couple catches for 29 yards. So, like, this game could have been so much better if Marcus Mariota had played because I feel like he just is a much bigger threat, not only running the football with his legs, but also throwing the football. With the rapport he has with those receivers already because he's played so much this year. And, again, was Washington probably going to lose this game no matter what? Yeah, probably. And the game was relatively close anyway, even with Josh Johnson being the quarterback. But even with the game being relatively close, it never felt like Washington was really going to win that football game. It just never felt that way. I feel like Dallas kind of like got that lead in the first half, and it was just never going to totally evaporate, even with Washington kind of doing what they could in that second half to kind of at least make the game closer. But it was again, by comparison to what the rest of the games were for the day, this game was definitely at least watchable because the other 2 games were absolutely dog crap in every sense of the word. But, the Cowboys are 7-8-1. I think they're eliminated from playoff contention, right? Now I got to check. I think they're eliminated from playoff contention. I don't think they have any chance to make the playoffs now. Let's see here. Yeah, Dallas is eliminated, so they have nothing else to play for except pride. So, but at least Dallas went out there and played well, and they didn't let the Commanders beat them because There's no reason they should have, but it is what it is. Next game, you got the Lions and Vikings. Vikings won this game 23-10. And let me tell you, this game was disgusting to watch. Let me talk about this, okay? Jared Goff, who is, I consider him like a top 10, usually like around a top 10 quarterback in the league, right? And I look at him and say, hey, as long as you can kind of keep him upright and protected and he has time to throw, you should be fine. And he's done really great as a Detroit Lion over the last few years. But here's the problem, right? Jared Goff also has those games that make you question everything you think you know about football with him. Because here was his stat line from against Minnesota from Thursday. 18-29, 197 yards, 1 touchdown and 2 picks. Sacked 5 times. But that doesn't tell the whole story. On top of those 2 interceptions that he threw, he also had 3 fumbles lost. Jared Goff had 5 total turnovers in this game. And those fumbles were just him not being able to hold on to the football at all. And one of the main, the big things talking about Jared Goff is talking about how small his hands are and how he doesn't have, again, I'm not necessarily going to go all the way down that, but it opens him up for the jokes that are coming his way. But you have 5 turnovers, 3 fumbles in a game. When you're Jared Goff and you've been in the NFL as long as you have, and you're playing against a Minnesota team that doesn't have anything offensively going their way. All you have to do is take care of the football and not fumble, and you probably win this game, even if you don't have your best offensive game plan behind you, because I have my own problems with how the offense is being ran now with Dan Campbell being the now head coach / play caller for the offense. But all you have to do is not turn over the football, and you probably win this football game because of how bad Minnesota was offensively. But Jared Goff didn't. He had an awful game. They also weren't able to run the football at all. Jahmyr Gibbs had 17 carries for 41 yards, averaged 2.4 yards a carry. David Montgomery, the other really good running back that I have a lot of respect for as a player, he had 10 carries and 25 yards for average about 2.5 yards a carry. They ran the football for almost 70 yards as a team. And when you're a Detroit Lions team and you have Jared Goff struggling as much as he has in that game, guess what you have to be able to do is run the football to take a little bit of the pressure off him. And guess what they can't do? Run the fucking football. And that only compounds any sort of issues that Jared Goff was having in that game, because they can't shut him down for a minute and say, hey, we understand you're having an issue here. We're going to try to keep our offense moving. We're going to run the football until you can figure it out and you feel more comfortable. We'll get you back in there and throw the football more. But we have to give you a reprieve. They just don't have that right now. And that's the biggest issue. Their offensive line is not as good as it has been in years past. They don't have the offensive creativity with Ben Johnson leaving and not being there anymore. Dan Campbell, I think Dan Campbell's a negative when it comes to play calling for the offense, because not only do I think he has the balls to go for it and do all that. I'm not questioning the idea of him not being aggressive enough, but it's just he's just not an offensive play caller. That's just not what he is. That's not putting together offenses is not how it goes. And ever since he started calling plays, it has not gone better for them. If anything, it's become more chaotic. And then on top of that, you have the offensive line not playing well. You're ruined. Jahmyr Gibbs is not. All you have to do is get him some decent play calling and get him some decent blocking up front. And I think Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the best backs in the sport. And they can't even get him going because of how bad all that is going offensively for them. So if they're going to win these games, their only chances for Jared Goff to throw the football over and over and over again. And he can't have an off day because they have no other pitch. All they have is their fastball. They don't have a curveball. They don't have anything else. And with Ben Johnson at the helm and what they had on the offensive line over the last few years, they were able to say, hey, Jared Goff ain't feeling it today. We can run the football with our running back duo, and they can really control this game. And that's just not what they have this year. And that's why Detroit's 8-8. They're knocked out of the playoffs. They have no chance doing it there. And they're going to have to do some real soul searching over the offseason to get a new play caller, get some new guys in at the offensive line, and really help that defense, obviously, because that defense has been so hurt and they have so little. They don't have the amount of bodies that you need defensively to kind of keep that team going. So like they have a lot of soul searching to do in the offseason, and it's just this game was bizarre in the way that it kind of played out, because I'll talk about Minnesota in a second. But St. Brown, 8 catches, 68 yards. I feel like he did fine. He wasn't doing bad. It was just that Jared Goff was so anemic offensively, they just didn't really had no chance to really get the offense together and like really keep a consistent attack going in a way. Isaac Tesla, he had 3 catches, 49 yards and a touchdown. Jamison Williams, 2 catches for 37 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs only got the ball 2 times in the passing game, 2 catches for 23 yards. Montgomery only had a couple catches. Like, this offense for the Lions was awful. Awful. So bad. And Minnesota, this is how bad this game was, okay? Minnesota won this football game, and their starting quarterback, Max Crosby, went 9 of 16 for 51 yards. Got sacked 7 times. 9 of 16 for 51 yards? He couldn't throw the football for barely over half a football field? That's insane. The fact that the Minnesota Vikings were able to win this game with their quarterback throwing for 51 gosh darn yards is absolutely insane to me. I will give the Vikings this. They did run the football relatively well. They had 158 total yards rushing in this game. Jordan Addison, 1 carry, 65 yards and a touchdown. He had the long touchdown run. That was good for them. Aaron Jones, 18 carries, 53 yards and a touchdown. He wasn't efficient at all, but they kept feeding him the rock, and he did what he had to do to kind of get yardage going, because, again, they had to do something because they weren't throwing the football at all. And Ty Chandler had 7 carries for 24 yards. Max Crosby added 16 yards off 2 carries. So, they ran the football relatively well, but they didn't do anything else in this game. It was all because of Detroit's lack of ball security in Jared Goff, that they were given short fields and they were able to get a lot of points they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Justin Jefferson, 4 catches, 30 yards. Aaron Jones, 3 catches, 10 yards. This is anemic offensive football. All Detroit had to do, all Jared Goff had to do, was hold on to the football and just play a normal football game. And they didn't have to be explosive offensively at all. All they had to do was keep the football on in their hands and take what they could get, and they would have won this game going away. But it's just all the turnovers by Jared Goff in this game was the absolute killer for them in this one, and it allowed the Vikings to win a game they probably shouldn't have won. They didn't deserve to win. But it is what it is. If you're going to make the mistakes, the other team's going to take them. The other team is never going to look at a team like, if you're the Vikings in that game, and Jared Goff fumbles the football for a 3rd time in that game, they're not going to say, "Hey, we don't want that. We don't want that turnover. We don't feel good about this." They're going to take it all day long. But it doesn't change the fact that it's just gross. Absolutely gross, anemic football that game was. It really was. It was awful. All right, last but not least, Broncos at Chiefs. Broncos won the game 20-13. Let me tell you, this game was disgusting as well, and for a totally different reason, because you could just tell from the get-go that Denver was a much better football team from start to finish. But it didn't play out that way because Denver kept playing with their food and just couldn't get... Not playing with their food, because I think the offense for them has been a struggle all year long. The offense for Denver has not necessarily been a machine just going after and killing everybody that they see. Bo Nix, 26-38 for 182 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. They were not pushing the football down the field whatsoever. They were a lot of dink and dunk passes. They averaged 4.8 yards of completion, so they weren't a lot of dinking and dunking. They didn't run the football. They ran the football okay. R.J. Harvey, 14 carries, 43 yards. Bo Nix had 9 carries, 42 yards, and a touchdown. Jaleel McLaughlin, another running back for them, 7 carries, 40 yards. They ran the football fine, but it just didn't feel like they... I don't want to give them this credit because it feels like that, like I just said, Denver has been up and down offensively all year long. But if you didn't watch this game, like if you knew what on paper what this Broncos team was offensively in comparison to the Chiefs, you would look at this game and think, oh, the Broncos didn't try in this game, right? That's what it felt like because of just how bad Kansas City was in general in this game. And as to why this game was close at all, it just doesn't make any sense to me. But again, it was just, but what I know about the Denver Denver Broncos offense is that they've been up and down all year long, and that Thursday was a down day for them. And even with all the troubles that Kansas City had offensively, Denver Broncos could not put them away. Well, they did put them away because they won the game, but they couldn't make the game out of reach to where it was like they didn't have a chance to lose it. Like it was because of how bad Denver was offensively that Kansas City, even with as bad as Chris Oladokun, the third string quarterback was for Kansas City in this game, he had 66 yards passing and a touchdown. Because he was able to play that terribly, and Denver was Kansas City still had a chance to win the game. That's the part that I don't understand. But let me get back to Denver real quick. Cortland Sutton, 4 catches, 40 yards. R.J. Harvey, 5 catches, 33 yards, and a touchdown. And then a bunch of other guys got involved, but none of them really did anything because it was all dink and dunk passes down the field, and they just couldn't. Denver got 2 of the touchdowns because it was 6-7 going into the halftime, and then in the second half, Denver was able to get 2 touchdowns on the board to Kansas City only getting 6 points. So that was the difference, was that Broncos were able to convert a few touchdowns in the second half rather than Kansas City Chiefs only being able to make field goals happen. But again, I can understand Kansas City struggling in this game. He had, like I said, Chris Oladokun, 13-22, 66 yards and a touchdown. They ran the football for 82 yards total in this game. Kareem Hunt, 7 carries, 38 yards. Isaiah Pacheco, 9 carries, 32 yards. Again, their running game has been a big struggle all year long. So I'm not sitting here saying this is a new development, that without Patrick Mahomes, they couldn't run the football either. But their running game has been awful all year long, no matter who's been the quarterback for them. And then now you have Chris Oladokun, who is a quarterback that's been a journeyman guy. I think he was drafted in the 7th round by Pittsburgh, which is why I know him as much as I do. And again, he's a third-string guy. He's never looked at as a guy that can be an eventual real NFL starter. He's a backup for a reason. And he came out, he made a couple plays that make you think, oh, he has a few physical tools, but nothing to make you think they really had a chance to win this football game if Denver wasn't going to unless Denver was going to give it to Kansas City, Kansas City had no chance of winning this football game. But unfortunately, Denver kept giving Kansas City chances over and over and over again by not shutting the door on Kansas City and making them totally shutting them down in this game. They just couldn't. Denver couldn't do that part. Travis Kelce, 5 catches, 36 yards. Juju Smith-Schuster, 3 catches, 16 yards. Hollywood Brown had a catch for 7 yards. Brashard Smith had a 3 catch for 5 yards and a touchdown. This is one of the things I want to talk about in this game, was because I was watching it pretty intently, unfortunately, because it was the end of the day. I had already opened gifts, already had Christmas dinner, and I was just watching it casually as I'm doing other things. And this game was so much. This game was talked about because everybody is thinking that this is Travis Kelce's last game with the Chiefs at home, because again, this is the Chiefs' last home game of the season. So the broadcast was making a big deal out of this could be Travis Kelce's last game in Arrowhead for the Chiefs before he retires at the end of this year. And I'm like, he hasn't made that decision public as of yet. He has continuously said whenever he has been asked that he's going to take it 1 year at a time, and once the season is over, he will take his time to make his choice then, and he'll announce it when he decides, right? But everybody has been trying to sit there and watch all the podcasts that he does and any interviews. People are looking at his words that he's using in comparison to other words, and everybody is he was talking about, I think on his podcast, he was when they were talking about Patrick Mahomes coming back and being healthy for next year, everybody was looking at the fact that he was talking about, hey, the Chiefs need to get Patrick Mahomes back rather than saying we, like he always does. That could just be a slip of words. He just said the wrong thing, but people are taking that as signs that he's saying that he's going to be retiring after this year. And that's just not necessarily a guarantee. So, like, when there is no guarantee, has not said for sure this is last season or anything like that. Now, all I have to see on this broadcast is every second looking at him, looking at Taylor Swift, and Travis Kelce's mom. They're like, oh, this could be the final time we see a Kelce in a football game anytime soon. And it's just like, it just felt a little bit thick to me. Again, if he would have announced that this was his last season and all of that, then I would totally understand. But it just felt like it was a grasp at straws to have some sort of storyline for this game, because this game didn't matter at all, and Denver was definitely going to win this game. So they were like, hey, we have nothing else better to talk about, so we're just going to make this all about Travis Kelce and make it feel like he's actually announced he's retiring, when that's not the case. So I think there is a real chance that, like, hey, that broadcast team is like going to be sick if Kelce decides to come back and play another year with Patrick Mahomes. I was just annoyed by it. Again, I'm not usually the one that's like annoyed by the showing of Taylor Swift or the showing of like kind of going to celebrities throughout the building and all of that, but it just felt like it was so Travis Kelce centric. Like, the Denver Broncos are a team that's going, like, they're 13-3, going to make the playoffs. Again, I don't like the Broncos that much as a football team. Like, I feel like they have real issues, and like they're probably not as good as their record says that they are. But again, that is a team that has more on their plate, and they have a lot more to play for this season. And that game was all made about Travis Kelce potentially playing his last game in Arrowhead, when we don't fucking know that that's the case. I was annoyed by that storyline being so heavily relied upon in that game. Again, there wasn't much else to look at, but still, find something else. Find something about real football that you can grasp onto. But they were just all making it about Travis Kelce. And again, I like Travis Kelce. I really do. I'm not one of those Travis Kelce haters, but it was just a little thick for me. It was a little thick, the way they were laying down that storyline during that game. So, all right. So that's the 3 games from Christmas. That was the Christmas Day slate that I had to react to. Before we get to the rest of the games, let me go ahead and go any stories I wanted to talk about before we get to the rest of the NFL slate, where I'll make my picks and announce Jace's. And that's how we'll end the podcast here. So, story-wise, the Raiders, they had a meeting with Max Crosby. I think this was yesterday. It was yesterday. So the Raiders had a meeting with Max Crosby, had him come into the facility, and the upper brass, Pete Carroll and the upper brass decided, hey, Max Crosby had a little bit of a knee injury. He's been playing through injuries all year long, because Max Crosby is one of those guys that, like, as long as he's able to go out there and play to a certain extent, he's going to go out there and play, injuries or not. And because of that injury, the Raiders kind of brought Max in and said, hey, we know you're dealing with an injury. These games absolutely do not matter. We want to go ahead and have you sit for the rest of the season while try to get healthy, and and play out the rest of these games without you. Max Crosby did not take kindly to that, and he decided, hey, I'm leaving the building. And like, he was not happy with the decision whatsoever. Again, he can't control whether he's activated or deactivated. I think they put him on IR for the rest of the year, so he's not going to be able to play any games for the rest of the last 2 games of the season. But I don't know. Like, I get the idea of a team looking at their situation and understanding that, like, hey, this is our best player on our defense, the only player really on our defense, and we want to keep him, maybe have a chance for him to get healthy, not have the injury get any worse, and go ahead and, like, have him ready for next year. But the problem is that when you're a team that has so little equity when it comes to being a good organization, and you're dealing with a guy, Max Crosby, that is he plays with real intention, right? He is not going out there. He's one of the few guys, again, he gets his money. He gets his, like, he just got another pay raise before this season started. So he's going to be a guy that's always going to want to get paid, right? But I think he's a well-intentioned player where he is going, as long as he has a capability to, he's going to go out there and give it his all for his team, for the fans. He wants to go out there and play. Like, I don't think he'll ever be one of those guys that's willing to get paid and just sit on the sideline, and when he knows he has a chance he can go out there and produce, That's just not what he is as a player. That's what he hasn't been that his whole career. So, and the Raiders know that, but they still did what they did and are trying to sit him for the rest of the season. But what you're doing is that when you're a team, I have a feeling if Max Crosby was on the Rams, or if he was on the Packers, or if he was on if he was on a better organization that has a real track record of making good decisions as a team, I feel like that conversation would have gone on a lot differently. But because it's the Raiders, who is a terrible, terrible organization that doesn't know really what they're doing on a year-in, year-out basis, and like, why are you saving me for the future when I'm not even sure it's going to be worth it then, because we're not even guaranteed to be a good team next year? Like, that's what we're dealing with here. So I can totally understand from Max Crosby's point of view is that why should I trust you trying to make a good decision when it's not like you do that at all anyway? So I could totally agree with Max Crosby not liking the decision that the Raiders are making, him not respecting it, especially when he wants to go out there and play. So I get where Max Crosby coming from. I just, like, the Raiders, I just don't know how the Raiders thought that was going to go any better than what it went. I don't know. If it looks, again, the Raiders, I'm never going to be I don't even think the Raiders could deny that they have a real lack of self-awareness at times, how they run their organization. And I totally get Max Crosby not respecting what the decision that the Raiders made. And I totally understand. I really do. It's just like, your best player wants to go out there and play. At least give your fans, if you're going to force them to pay these crazy tickets to watch your games and like pay crazy prices for you to watch you play, at least let your best player go out there, especially if he wants to play. Not to mention, if he's willing to take that risk and he wants to play, again, he wants to play out these last 2 games of the season. He'll have a whole offseason to get any sort of surgeries he needs or any sort of rehab. Like, he'll be able to do all that after the season. So, like, let him make that decision. I don't know. It's just weird. But I just think that I totally understand where Crosby is coming from in that scenario. Next story, Packers rule out Jordan Love and will start Malik Willis versus the Ravens this weekend. So, Packers are going to be without Jordan Love. Malik Willis did come back. Sorry, Jordan Love went out last game, and Malik Willis came in against the Bears, and he played very well. He really did. He played well. He has really good legs, like legs as in like he can extend plays with his legs, get yardage that way, and I think he's a pretty decent thrower of the football, and he knows the offense. You could just tell they have real trust in him as their backup quarterback. So I'm not necessarily saying that he makes them a lot more likely to lose this game against the Ravens, because looking at it on the other side, the Ravens won't have Lamar Jackson either. So both of these teams will be starting backup quarterbacks in this game. And if I had to rely on one, I think I would rely on Green Bay a little bit more with Malik Willis. I just think he's a lot better backup than what Snoop Huntley is for the Ravens. But it is something, because think about it this way. The Packers, as of right now, they are, let me see here. Schedule. The Packers are 9-5-1. I think they're a lock to make the playoffs. I think they've locked in a playoff spot either way. So whether they win the division or not, no, they won the division too, right? Oh, let me see. NFL standings. NFC North. Both them and Chicago have locked in a playoff spot, and nobody's won the division yet. So the division is still up for grabs. So they still have a lot to play for, but Jordan Love got the concussion last week, isn't able to play again this week, and hopefully, if Malik Willis comes out and does what he's supposed to, the Packers still have a real chance to win this game. But it is because obviously what they would want to do is have Jordan Love get as healthy as he possibly can, and by the time they get to the playoffs, have him be able to come back and be able to be the quarterback for them. Because think about it this way, is like the Packers, even though I really do like Malik Willis as a quarterback, it's just the more that he plays, the more likely it is that he starts making mistakes. And I do think Jordan Love is their best chance to go out there and win football games. Their defense is not going to be as good because obviously they won't have Micah Parsons as their premier pass rusher on the defensive side of the ball. And the way I look at it is that, like, this game, it is not necessary for them to have Jordan Love for them to win this game against the Ravens. It's not, especially with the Ravens not having Lamar Jackson. So I totally get the idea of the Packers being as, again, it's not even a guarantee. Like, even if it's close and they could potentially get him in there, I would be totally down with them not playing him at all. Because, the Ravens are just so bad. They're so bad. Again, I'm not saying my team is much better. I'm really not. I'm not even trying to go that route. I'm just saying the Ravens have been struggling all year long, and I just think the Packers can make it work with Malik Willis. The way he played last week, I think if they bring that same type of game plan into playing the Ravens, I think this is today when they're playing. So as long as they have that same sort of game plan and Malik Willis plays relatively well, I think they can win this game against the Ravens without much of an issue. So getting Love healthy as much as possible will definitely be the number one thing as they're getting ready for a playoff run. Next one, you have Myles Garrett. He's getting ready for the sack record against the Steelers this weekend. Again, I already talked about this and how fitting it would be because Steeler fans hate Myles Garrett so much for him to totally break the sack record right in front, like in the face of Steelers fans. Again, this game is going to be in Cleveland, but there's going to be plenty of Pittsburgh Steelers fans there, and again, it's been a war back and forth between him and Pittsburgh Steelers fans in general. So I couldn't help but see the irony in the idea that how Steeler fans have, again, including me, have fought so hard about how TJ Watt's a better pass rusher, and then Myles Garrett gets to break the sack record that TJ Watt holds a share of against the Steelers. It's very ironic that this is how it might go. And on top of that, the fact that if he does break that sack record, will most likely do it by sacking Aaron Rodgers. I'm not gonna lie, it's a potentially very cool moment. Again, I would hate for it to be against my team, which it definitely would be if he does it this weekend. But so I would be more than happy to see them lock him out to make sure he doesn't get that sack. But again, Myles Garrett's a very good player himself, and it's going to be very hard to stop him from getting any sacks. So, while still trying to win the game, because again, winning the game is more important than no matter how many sacks we give up to Myles Garrett. Winning the game is what is more important. So, win the game. Myles Garrett's going to get that sack record either way, so it doesn't really matter. Just win the game so you don't have to worry about making the playoffs or not and having to face the Ravens in Week 18 and have that game actually be worth something. So if the Steelers win that game on Sunday, like, it doesn't matter if the Ravens win or lose against the Packers today, or if whatever happens in that game next week, it doesn't matter. So the Steelers' number one job should be to win that game against Cleveland, no matter what Myles Garrett does on the other side. Sorry, I need a drink there. Any other story? Josh Allen for the Bills is good to go. He did have a foot injury last week in their game against. That was against the Browns, right? Yeah, it was against the Browns. He had a foot injury in that game. A little bit gimpy throughout that game. But he says he is good to go. And again, they need him to be because that's their best chance to win these games. They have to play the Eagles this weekend, so it's definitely a game they would need him to be as healthy as possible to go out there and win that football game. Let's see. Anybody else? TJ Watt's not going to be playing for the Steelers this weekend, which is obviously coming off of the punctured lung. I'm not surprised by that. Let me see who else here. Pats. New England's going to be down 5 starters in this upcoming game against the Jets. Again, it's against the Jets, so if they can't win this game without 5 of their starters, they don't deserve to win it anyway. But in this game, they're going to be without Kayshon Boutte, Mac Hollins, Harold Landry, Robert Spillane, and Jared Wilson. So they're going to be down all 5 of those players. Travion Henderson is dealing with an injury himself. They say he might actually be able to play. So that is going to be a nice little boost for them with their running game. But even with all those guys missing, New England should be able to win this game because of how bad the Jets have been all year long. If they lose this game against the Jets, they deserve to lose it. I'm not going to sit here and make any excuses as to not having those 5 starters being the reason. That wouldn't make any sense to me. The Patriots are a much better football team. They should not lose this game whatsoever. The Jets are terrible. So it's a real issue, but I just don't think it should be enough for them to lose this football game against the Jets. And let's see. Do I care about the Colts? The Colts are going to get back Sauce Gardner for this game, for their game against who are they playing? No, I got to check. Give me a second here. The Colts are playing the Jags this weekend, so Colts are going to have Sauce Gardner back, but they will not. They will be without DeForest Buckner. So that's a little bit of an iffy one because DeForest Buckner is one of their better pass rushers on their defensive line. And obviously Sauce Gardner is the player that they gave away multiple first-round draft picks for to be able to trade for him to get him from the Jets, which is good. When you traded for him, they thought they were going all in on going for a Super Bowl this year. That didn't happen. He got hurt. Daniel Jones got hurt, and it kind of derailed their season from there. And again, I just think that even if Sauce Gardner isn't like 100%, like being able to have him come out there and play these last couple of games will at least give the Colts fans hope that they did not trade all those first round, like the multiple first round picks for a player that's going to get injured right away. At least gives them a little bit of hope going into next year that like, hey, this is the guy, is he can play a full season next year. We can get this sort of player, and I think it'll help us out for the future. So I do think having him come out and at least try to play these last couple of games will be at least a little bit of a boost. Again, they're playing with Phillip Rivers as their quarterback at 44 years old, and they're playing against a very good Jaguars team that's 11-4, and that has a lot more to play for. And I don't think the Colts are going to win this game. But I do think having Sauce Gardner out there, at least be able to show a little bit that like what he is as a player to those Colts fans will be, again, everybody knows what he is because of what he did with the Jets. But it's different when you can see him do it for your team. I feel like it just hammers it home a little bit better, like what he can be as a Colt. And maybe going into next year, I think it'll be a morale booster, if anything. That'll help out. Because I don't think the Colts are going to win this game. But if Sauce Gardner can go out there and play relatively well, I think it'll be a nice little boost for the Colts fans to look forward to for next year. And is that it for the stories I wanted to talk about? Oh, the DK Metcalf thing with the fan and him grabbing the fan off from the sideline and like doing all that. It looked like he punched him and all. So, since I talked about it last time on podcast, it looked like the story has come out as of right now. There's been videos that have been leaked that pretty much show that the guy never said anything of what DK leaked to the media that was said. So it was said that like DK said to some people in the media, he never said it himself though. He was never caught on camera actually saying that this person, that fan, said anything of the sort. But the news was that he gave to, I think, Chad Ochocinco and a couple other people, was that the fan had said a derogatory remark, obviously using a hard R, and then called his mom a C word, right? That was the story that was leaked out, but DK Metcalf never said it with his own mouth in an interview that was said, okay? And then, so me being a guy that's like, me being a black man, I want to believe when a guy says that was said to them and they have a reaction like that, I wouldn't first go off. My first thought wouldn't be that dude is lying. Because as a black man, when I see another black man, they say that somebody said that to them, I want to believe that that's the case. I just don't want to think people are using that as an excuse to kind of get away with doing things they want to do and just saying that on the back end to try to make themselves look better. But videos have came out that have kind of helped disprove that was ever said. The fan has gotten real representation when it comes to getting lawyers, and has made it very clear. He's went out on camera and in interviews and said, hey, I never said anything like that. I was just calling him by his first name, and he didn't like it, and that's what got the reaction. And I'm starting to believe that the fan did nothing wrong, and that the way that was looked at was that DK looked at the situation, said, I fucked up, and decided to leak this weird, bad information that the fan had said something like that to him. And that's wrong. And that's totally wrong. Because as a black man, you never want, because again, when people use derogatory marks against you or against people that you love in the black community, and if that is something you want to stay serious. And when DK does something like that, it kind of sounds like the boy who cried wolf when it didn't actually happen. So now when you have dudes like this, kind of like dudes like DK making that decision to lie, now when it happens to the next person, people will not be as willing to take up for that person when they say that happened to them, because they're like, hey, people are lying about that. Are you telling the truth? Are you telling a lie to kind of make yourself look better for the reaction that you had? Like, that's the part that sucks. Like, I wanted to believe that DK Metcalf would be an adult, and because again, if he got that said to him, I would totally understand the reaction that he had. But because it's showing to not be the case, he's now suspended for the next 2 games. And believe it or not, in the social media era, like, when people find out that dudes say stuff like that, or people say things like that, there is a real reaction. Like, not only on social media, but people, they find you. There are things that they do against you. Like, there is some real consequences for making a claim like that, especially if that didn't actually happen. So I'm just very disappointed that DK took that route. He could have just said, I fucked up, I had a bad reaction, but he decided to try to cover his ass instead and try to make up a story that doesn't seem to be true at all. So I'm very disappointed by that. He deserves to get suspended these next couple games, and all the money he's probably going to end up losing because of it. He deserves it. Like, you're an adult out there making millions of dollars, and the dude's calling you by your first name, and you have a reaction as bad as that you just can't have it. You can't have it. At some point, you either have to be in control of your own action, or get somebody else out there. There's so many people on that on the staff for the Steelers that if you just say, hey, keep me away from the sidelines, I know what I can do if I kind of get in my own head about it. If you see me start going towards the sideline, there should be somebody to stop me. Like, just be an adult. Be an adult. And I felt like DK Metcalf got caught not being an adult, and he made a childish decision to try to make up a story that wasn't real. And he put the fan in a bad position, because that's not if that is something that is said that you did, you don't want that on your record, especially if you didn't do it. So I feel bad for the fan. And I'm very disappointed in the fact that DK made up that story. It sucks. It really does. All right, and that's about it for the stories that I wanted to talk about. Let's go ahead and get to the rest of the NFL slate. Let's see here. We have 2 games that are happening today, and then we have the rest of the slate happening over the next couple days. Not only the full slate of Sunday football, but then you have the Monday night football as well. So let's go ahead and get to it. As of the picks that I've made so far, me and Jace are 2-1, because we both picked the same for all 3 games, being Dallas, Detroit, and Denver. Detroit was the only team that let us down this week, at least so far in the Thursday games. So let's go ahead and get to the rest. So the 2 Saturday games, we'll start with those. So we got, the first one is going to be today at 4:30. You have the Houston Texans taking a trip to go to the LA Chargers. You have the Chargers being a 1.5 favorite. You have Houston coming off of a very bad offensive game against the Raiders last week, where Houston they pulled it out. They were able to make the plays in the end to win the game, but the offense definitely struggled in a way that they hadn't in the weeks prior to that. But then the defense struggled a little bit too against the Raiders as well. They kind of let Ashton Jency go off and make a lot of plays, but like, I think in general the Houston defense has been the most consistent unit on that football team this year. And then you have the LA Chargers team coming off of a win against the Cowboys, where they emphatic win, of course, 34-17. So how do you see this game going? Jace picked Houston in this game. So will I. I think the Houston defense, again, they had a little bit of a down week last week. I think they'll come into this game with a bad attitude, and I think they take real pride in trying to lock down every offense that they see. And I think coming off the last game where they didn't play as well, I think they're going to come into this game being ultra aggressive, doing what they've been doing all year, and trying to really make it hard on Justin Herbert to go out there and make plays. They're going to get after Herbert. They're going to sack him. They're going to stay in front of him. They're just going to get after you, man. That's what they do, and their secondary is absolutely amazing. I just don't know how I see any of their receivers really like taking advantage of the Houston secondary. Like, that's like the best part of their team. So I think Houston wins that game along with Jace. I think it'll be a very good game though. I'll be watching it. I'll make a few bets for sure. I always do. But I think Houston wins that game. Yeah, I think Houston wins. Next game, Baltimore at Green Bay. Like I said before, this is going to be the battle of the backup quarterbacks. You're going to have Malik Willis going up against Snoop Huntley. Jace picked Green Bay, and so will I. I just think that Malik Willis is a little bit better of a backup quarterback than what Snoop Huntley is. I also think that Green Bay offensively just has a little bit, like they have their shit together a little better than what the Ravens have had all year long, even with Lamar Jackson at the helm. I just think that, you know what it is? I think Green Bay has an identity in a way that I think no matter who Baltimore has at the helm, whether it's Lamar Jackson or Snoop Huntley, like I just don't think Baltimore has a real identity offensively. Do they want to run the football with Derrick Henry a bunch of times and let him kind of be the freight train that he is? Do they want to have Lamar be the MVP candidate and let him throw the football a bunch of times and get the ball down the field? Do they even have the wide receivers to do so if they decided to do that? Like defensively, the Ravens are nowhere, like their defensive guys gotten better over the year, but their defense is nowhere near what it usually is in being one of the better defenses in the NFL. It's like their defense is not necessarily the most, consistent throughout the season. So I'm just sitting here like there's so many things that Baltimore has going against them. And then on top of that, you don't have Lamar Jackson. You have Snoop Huntley coming out and playing against Green Bay. Again, Green Bay won't have the same pass rush without Micah Parsons, but the Green Bay defense is still, I'm not going to sit here and say it's amazing, but it is very formidable. And I'm just like, and they're playing at Green Bay. So I just think everything on their side, I do think Green Bay wins that football game. Next game, you have Arizona going to Cincinnati. Jace picks Cincinnati, and so will I. I just think that Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins is going to want to go out there. Again, they're not really playing for anything. They're playing for pride at this point. But I just think that the way I see it, Arizona, they have, again, Arizona's been weird all year. They've had times they look like they can be a very tough bunch to play. But other times it's like they've been locked down to some certain degree. But my question for them for this game is, can the Bengals defensively stop? Because I think Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride are both playing in this game. Let me see here. Now I gotta check. Marvin Harrison's questionable, but Paris Johnson's going to be out for them. That's their starting offensive tackle. He's not going to be playing in this game. Buda Baker's out. Walter Nolan's on IR. Bam Knight, their running backs on IR. They have a lot of guys not playing in this game. So even if, it feels like what they have offensively, it's mostly going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride being their main two guys, and they really don't have anything else. And then they have injuries on their offensive line. It doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy on the inside picking the Cardinals to potentially win this game, especially when you have Joe Burrow going out there, and he'll be out there with his guys with, like I said, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Chase Brown also has been having a little bit of resurgence at playing better over these last few weeks. So the way I just see it, man, I just like, especially with the Bengals being at home, they're going to have that on their side as well. So I just think Arizona, not necessarily used to playing in the cold that way. I think Cincinnati wins this football game. I think Joe Burrow goes out there. Do I think he's going to be as explosive as last week where he had like 4 touchdown passes? Probably not. But I do think Cincinnati will go out there and win that football game against the Arizona team that really hasn't been great all year. And, I just don't think Arizona's going to be able to pull it out in the cold against the Bengals. That's just not going to happen. Next game, got Pittsburgh going to Cleveland. Jace picked Pittsburgh, and so will I. I just think that Pittsburgh is going to be very keen on getting this game done and over with, because if they win this game, it doesn't matter what's happening next week. It doesn't matter what the Ravens are doing against the Packers today. Nothing will matter as long as the Steelers win this game. But what's funny is that actually they'll know the outcome of that Packers and Steelers. Sorry, they'll know the outcome of the Packers and Ravens game by the time they play tomorrow. So I think all it takes is the Ravens to lose this game, and it won't even matter what the Steelers do tomorrow. But again, I do think the Steelers are going to want to win this game against the Cleveland because, big brother, little brother type of thing. So you never want to let Cleveland think that they have something over you to win that game. So I'm going to take Pittsburgh to win that game. Myles Garrett's probably going to get the sack record without much of an issue. But I do think Pittsburgh is playing their best football right now. They're able to. They're showing a real identity to be able to kind of play multiple offensively. They are going to be without DK Metcalf, but again, it's not like DK Metcalf has been tearing it up every single week. They've just been getting the ball to a bunch of different guys, letting them make plays. Aaron Rodgers has been making good decisions at the line, getting the ball to anybody that he needs to in order to get the ball down the field. They're not really throwing down the field, but they're just inching. They're like just trying to be efficient, running the football, letting Aaron Rodgers make good decisions, and like that's how they're kind of running their offense. And then defensively, man, it's just like the defense is beginning after it, man. Without TJ Watt, they've been getting after quarterbacks. They've been getting a lot of pressure. Jalen Ramsey has been kind of all over the place, making plays and doing what he has to do. And I just think that all in all, I think the Steelers really want to win this game to not even have to worry about next week at all. So the way I see it, Pittsburgh is a better team than Cleveland, even though I would not be surprised if we lost this game because it would just be hilarious. And that's kind of how the Steelers have been over the last few years. Hey, you just have to win this game and it'll put you in a good spot, and they lose. So I am more than ready for the opportunity that the Steelers, for the scenario in which the Steelers lose this game to the Browns. But I just don't think it's going to happen. I think they're playing some decent football as of right now. Next game, New Orleans going to Tennessee. Jace is picking New Orleans, and so will I. Believe it or not, I think I talked about this on the last pod. The Saints are really finding a groove as of recently. Tyler Shuck is making some good plays, getting the ball down the field, making really getting the ball out to his playmakers. Chris Olave just had his best game of the season. I think he had over 200, he had a couple touchdowns, 150 yards, something like that. He had a very good game. And I just think the Saints just have a little bit more to play for as of right now. I think they don't have more to play for because both the Saints and the Titans both suck ass. But I will say that the Saints have just been playing with a little bit of moxie as of recently. They're playing tough. They're getting the ball down the field. And they're playing it. Tennessee is I don't know. Tennessee's a young team. They have Cam Ward. They really don't have a lot of crazy weapons to really have to worry about. And as much as I think the New Orleans Saints are not necessarily a great team, I think they do have enough to take care of this Tennessee Titans team. And I think the Saints are really playing with a lot of confidence right now. I think they're going to win that game. Next game we have is Jacksonville going to Indianapolis. Jace picked Jacksonville, and so will I. I know this is it seems like a lot of chalk. But it's just, again, when it's late in the season like this, it's we just know which teams are better. And if these teams lose these games against these worser opponents, then it's just what happened in these scenarios. But again, it's the NFL. But Jacksonville is just a better team. They're playing better football right now in comparison to what Indianapolis is. Like I said before, Indianapolis is starting a 44-year-old quarterback in Phillip Rivers. And they're going to be without DeForest Buckner. They will get Sauce Gardner back, so that'll be something. But I just think the Jaguars are playing so effective offensively. Trevor Lawrence is making a lot of good plays and getting the football down the field to his guys. And he's actually using his legs as well, which I think has added a different element to his game that a lot of NFL defenses have to worry about now. And the way I see it is just Jacksonville is a team. I said this on the last pod, that they're a team that has kind of been under the radar, being 11-4, and they're not being talked about whatsoever. But I do think the way they're playing right now, if they can keep this going with their new head coach Liam Cohen, and how he has that offense humming right now, calling the plays, I do think we have to give them a little bit of credit here. This Jags team is good. They're they're playing really good football. Again, do I think their defense can really stop some of the better offenses in the AFC? Probably not. But here's the thing. What great offenses are there in the AFC? There's not any. There's really not. So the Jaguars, as long as they can keep Trevor Lawrence kind of making good decisions and doing what he's been doing over the last month or so, I think the Jags are like a real like contender in the AFC to like really make a big run. I really do think so. They're just playing very good football right now. Again, Trevor Lawrence in the playoffs, he does have some like steps to be taken to really prove that he is that type of guy when the lights are the brightest. But I do, as of right now, the way they're playing, I have to give them their credit and say they're like one of the better teams in the AFC and in the league with how they're playing. Next game we got is Tampa Bay at Miami. Jace is taking Tampa Bay, and so will I. I think Miami's a terrible football team. I think Miami is going to be still playing Quinn Ewers as their quarterback going into this weekend, so I'm not feeling any confidence in that. And on top of the fact that I think Tampa Bay is a team with a lot of pride. They've been playing very bad football. Their defense is terrible. But I just think that at some point, something has to give, and that team's going to have to do something against somebody. And I think Miami is that team where, like, if Tampa Bay loses this game against Miami, they have no pulse as a football team. It's over. The moxie's over. I think that Baker Mayfield is going to have some real questions about him going into next season about what happened. Why did you like struggle so hard in the final, like the back half of the year? They have a game against Carolina next week that'll be for the division, I believe. So that's going to be a big one. So I think Tampa Bay really does need to just play a good football game and kind of put a whole game together against a bad Miami football team. And I just think they have enough leaders on that squad to make it happen, even if like that defense is awful. But they just have so many leaders on that team. They need this effort. Like these last 2 weeks, they need to go all out, and I think they can do so. But it's just Tampa Bay has been falling apart at the seams over the last few weeks. So I'm going to take Tampa Bay because I believe in I believed in Tampa Bay earlier on this year. So maybe it's just taking me a lot more to get off of the belief. But it's Miami. Miami's awful, man. They're so bad. If Tampa Bay can't make it work against them, there are some real issues that need to be fixed. Real issues that need to be fixed if they can't beat Miami. Next game, New England going to the New York Jets. Jace picked New England, and so will I. What is there to say? I know New England's going to be without 5 starters from their team. It doesn't matter. The Jets are awful. They've been awful all year long. It's been a disaster for that Jets organization. It's been terrible. And the New England's a much better football team. Even with those guys, they haven't have backups in those 5 spots. I think they should have this game won by the end of the first half. I really do think so. This New England team, the way the Drake May is playing as of late, they should be able to win this game without an issue. I really do. I'm not going to sit here and waste any more time going through it as if the Jets have a chance, because they don't. New England, come in and just play a C game, and you win this game by 10 points. Next game, you have Seattle going to Carolina. Jace picked Seattle, and so will I. I think Seattle's a much better football team. I think for this game does not matter to Carolina whatsoever. The only game that matters is next week against Tampa Bay, and that's going to be the game that matters to them. So not only do I not like Carolina's not a better team than Seattle whatsoever, and Seattle is playing a very good football right now, but I also think the idea that Carolina knows that this game doesn't matter, I feel like is another little thing in their back of their brain that will keep them from necessarily going all out in this football game to win it. So I'm going to take Seattle. They're a much better football team, and Carolina just doesn't need this game. So I think Seattle will win this game without much of an issue. I think they'll go back to doing their normal thing where they're going to like nuke a team in the first half and then just kind of be chilling in the second half, just kind of waiting for the game to go, because I think Carolina knows what the situation is. Beat Tampa Bay next week, you make the playoffs. If you don't beat them next week, then you're out. I feel like it's very easy for Carolina, the way they have to think about the rest of this season. Next game, New York Giants going to Las Vegas. Jace picked the Giants, and so will I. I just think that the fact that the Raiders just told their best player, Max Crosby, to hang it up for the rest of the season, I don't think is good messaging for the rest of your locker room. Like, again, these players, when you start these seasons, right? Part of the deal is these players, we're going to pay you this money, but at the end of the day, the main goal is to win. You make them play through. They play through injuries. They go through all this crap all year long, and not only that is especially if you're playing on a bad team, when you're going out there and playing, you're not only playing to try to get the wins, but you're also playing to put good film on tape out there, if not only for the Raiders potentially keep you and like decide to keep you on for the next season, but for another team out there to maybe want to give you a chance to kind of make their squad. So when you're going into these games where you ask these players to sacrifice what they're sacrificing, and then you tell the best player on your squad because this season doesn't matter, so we're going to sit you. What message does that give to the rest of the players on that roster? Again, these players aren't stupid. They know they've been bad all year long. They know winning this game doesn't absolutely change their life, but at the end of the day, when you go out there and play on the football field, you can't half-ass it. You have to go out there and play your best game, and I'm just like, when your own team is telling you how much it doesn't matter, they're taking their best player off the field and leaving the rest of you guys kind of high and dry, I feel like it just sends them a bad message out to the rest of your team. And I think that that's going to be enough where I don't think Vegas will be able to really put up the effort necessary, even against a very bad Giants. I think the Giants are awful. I really do. But I just think that the Giants will be able to do enough. Like, can you expect Vegas to, against that very good defensive line for the Giants, to be able to run the football like they did last week? Or, like, can you expect Ashton Jeanty to have the kind of breakout game 2 weeks in a row? He hasn't really done that all year, so why would I expect him to do that now? So, I don't know. I'm going to take the Giants to win that game. The next one we got is Philly going to Buffalo. Ooh. Jace picked Philly in this one. I'm going to take Buffalo. And I say that because the way I look at it is that Buffalo still has something to play for. But I think Buffalo still has a chance to win the division, right? Am I crazy? Let's see. NFL division. Winner. What is it? Sorry, I'm looking up division winner scenarios. So let's see here. For Buffalo, right, going into this game against Philadelphia, if Buffalo still wants to win the division, like the only way they lose the division in this game is if the Patriots win their game against the Jets and then Buffalo loses to Philadelphia. So Buffalo still has a lot. They still have a lot to play for in this, to where if they still want a chance to win their division, be able to play a playoff game at home. And I think, can they still win the number one overall seed? Let me see here. No. Green Bay, Chicago, No, because they can't get the number one seed, but you still win the division and not be playing on the road in the playoffs. So I think that'll be a big advantage for them if they get to play at home rather than have to play on the road in the wild card round. So Buffalo still has a lot to play for. I think Philadelphia has locked up their division without much of an issue. Let me see here. Make sure I'm not crazy. Yeah, the Eagles have locked up their division. They don't have as much to play for. On top of the fact that I think that Philly, man, they had a decent week last week against Washington, where they were able to kind of get everybody out there and playing good football and all that. But it's just, as much as I don't think the Buffalo defense is all that good, I do think they'll put up a better effort than what Washington would. And I think they do have more pass rushers, and I think they just have a lot more to them. Not to mention you're playing at Buffalo, so it's a very raucous environment that Philadelphia is going to have to come and play in. So the way I see it, not to mention Josh Allen's the best player on the field. And if he is healthy and if he's able to go out there and do what he needs to do, I think Josh Allen could put up an effort that can go out there, especially with them needing this game. They still want to try to win the division. So the way I see it, I do think that Buffalo has more to play for. I think Buffalo has the better quarterback in this game. And as much as I think Philadelphia, like, they're a much more talented team in general, it's just, can you guarantee me that Philadelphia is going to put their best effort out there, their best offense out there they possibly can? I just don't think you can Nobody can rely on that from Philadelphia on a week in, week out basis. And as much as I don't think you can rely on Josh Allen to be Superman every game, I do think even if Josh Allen isn't at his best, I think he'll be more likely to play a better game out there than what Jalen Hurts has been. And I just don't think that, and I don't think if Philly's gonna be able to run the football in the same way against Buffalo. So I think if they're not able to run the football like they need to, it's not going to open up their offense to do other things like throw the football to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So I think Buffalo wins that game, especially with Buffalo being at home. And again, Josh Allen being the best player on the field, and they still need that game a lot more than what Philly does. Next game, you got Chicago going to San Francisco. Jace picks Chicago. I'm going to take San Fran. I think San Fran's been playing some absolutely amazing football as of recently. This game is in San Francisco, so San Fran has the home field advantage going to them. And the way I see it, man, I think Brock Purdy, as much as I've been a Brock Purdy hater over the years, and I've not just a hate, I think I've been a Brock Purdy truther. But no matter how I feel about Brock Purdy and how I think he has too much personality for that team and for Kyle Shanahan as a coach, I think that he's very locked in right now. He's playing some very good football. They're getting the ball to all of their weapons out. Christian McCaffrey is absolutely killing it right now. George Kittle is absolutely playing amazing ball. They're getting the ball to him a lot as of recently, and they're playing some very good ball. Injury-wise, Kittle's questionable, so I think he's probably going to play in this game. Ricky Pearsall is questionable. He'll probably play in this game. And I'm just like, as long as they have all their offensive weapons, I think they should be able to. I think this will be an offensive game plan, to be totally honest. I think both teams will be able to get up and down the football field, but the question is who's going to be able to get more touchdowns and field goals. And I believe in San Fran just a tad bit more right now. I really do. I think they're playing very efficient football. I think Brock Purdy is making some good decisions, not turning the football over. And I just think with that, I believe in San Fran, especially at home, to be able to get this game and win this one. Again, it's not to take anything away from Chicago. I think they're playing good football as well. I'm about to say Caleb. I'm about to say Cameron. Caleb Williams has been playing some very good ball. He had the emotional game winner last week against the Packers. I think coming off of that game where they had to try so hard against them to win that game, I think that takes away a little bit of the win from their sails coming into this game against San Fran, who, again, I've been talking about how much San Fran's defense has been struggling all year, but guess what? They're 11-4 with Brock Purdy, without Brock Purdy, playing Mac Jones. Like they've been shuffling players in and out all year long, and they've still managed to be at 11-4, looking like one of the better teams in football, let alone the NFC. So I think San Fran at home can win that game against Chicago. I really do. Last but not least, we have the Rams going against the Falcons. Jace picked the LA Rams, and so will I. The Rams are just a much better football team, top to bottom. Matthew Stafford is on playing at an MVP level as of right now, playing absolutely amazing. Puka Nacua, with all the issues that he had going into last week's game, and then after the game where he kind of like made his tweets about the officials and deleted it, I think he'll be looking for trying to like have another good game and trying to get all that craziness of last week of the news cycle behind him and be able to play some good football. They still will not have Devontae Adams. Actually, no, they're saying he's questionable and might be able to play with the hamstring injury. But again, I think if he's even close to like not being all the way healthy, I think they should sit him because Atlanta's just that bad of a football team. And I think that the Rams' main focus should be to make sure they have everybody as healthy as they possibly can be going into the playoffs, where I think that's the main goal, man. Their main goal should be to get to and win a Super Bowl. That's how good the Rams have been all year long. And when you're playing against a Falcons team that has been very like mediocre all year long, I think that even without Devontae Adams, the Rams should be able to win this football game with how good they have been offensively and with the fact that their defense, even though their secondary is kind of doo-doo garbage, I do think they can get after Kirk Cousins and make him feel uncomfortable. And as long as they can do that, I think they can disrupt that offense enough to be able to come out of this game with a win, even with the Rams not necessarily being at fully 100% with having all their guys. So all in all, the Rams are a better team, even with them playing on the road at Atlanta. I think it's a dome. You're not dealing with the weathery conditions or anything. They're playing inside. So I just think, all in all, I think the Rams are a much better football team. I think it'll play out that way on Monday night. So that's all the games. And let me give you our records picking games this season. Straight up, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that enough, but straight up, I am 138, 87 and 1. Jace is 146, 79 and 1. So there's 8 games. Sorry, is that 8 games between us? Yeah, there's 8 games separating Jace and I. He is currently ahead. And for the picks we've already made that have the games been played, we are 2 and 1 from the Thursday games from Christmas. So, and now we have the rest of the games where there is currently 2 splits, and those splits being in the Buffalo and Philly game, and then in the Chicago and San Fran game. So hopefully those games go my way, so I can try to take a few cracks at trying to. Again, he has 8 game lead, so even if I do get these 2 splits, there's 6 games separating Jason and I going into the last week of the season. I'm probably not going to erase that deficit in 2 weeks. So again, but it's my job to make it as close as possible. And I do think in those 2 games where I picked the opposite squad, I do think Buffalo and San Fran have a real chance to win those games. So I'm not necessarily doing this out of desperation, but I am trying to make it a little bit more fun. Because, again, going through this whole slate and, talking about all these games and about how Jason and I just keep picking the same teams, it doesn't necessarily sound as fun. So I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of a risk here, even though I do think those 2 games are very good picks by me picking Buffalo and San Fran. So, again, I keep asking Jace, will he let us do just making our picks with the spread next year? And he keeps saying no because he doesn't want to do it. And I'm like, it's just... I just want to make it more difficult on both of us so we have a little bit more fun with it, and our records aren't so overwhelming. So, I don't know. He just won't do it, man. Again, that's the problem with having a podcast with having multiple hosts, is that, unfortunately, I can't force him against his will to do something he doesn't want to do. So, it is what it is on that. So, without further ado, about an hour 46 we have gone so far in this pod. So, I thought we were going to be about an hour and a half. I went a little long, but, it is what it is. And we'll be back next week. I hope everybody had a great Christmas, by the way. Great Christmas. Very happy holidays. We'll be back next week on Tuesday. It'll be both of us back, so you'll definitely be able to look forward to having us both back, kind of doing our thing, talk about sports, and kind of talk about all these, doing the recap of all these games, and then kind of doing the previews of the college football playoff games that are happening on Wednesday and Thursday of next week. So, all in all, hopefully everybody has had a happy holiday. If you're listening to this podcast or you're spending time out of your day to kind of give us a shot to listen to us, I definitely appreciate you guys doing that. So I'm not going to extend this anymore. Let's end the podcast here. If you've been listening for a while, we appreciate you. If you're just now joining on, hopefully you like us and enjoy us enough to join us on this ride of talking about sports in the dumbest way possible. If this is the first podcast you've listened to, I would love if you could go and listen to a different podcast with both me and Jace on there, so you get a better idea of what this podcast is at its best when you have both of us here as brothers, as co-hosts, here talking about sports, talking shit, making jokes, and doing all that. That's kind of what we are at our best. So hopefully you can go listen to that, get a better idea of what we are when this podcast is at its greatest. So I'd love if you can do that. And if you decide after all that you want to stick around and listen to us talk about sports in the dumbest way possible, we would appreciate if you could do a couple things for us. So make sure you like our podcast, subscribe to the podcast, and rate the podcast 5 stars wherever you listen to us. We're pretty much available on all audio platforms out there, so we would love if you can do that. And make sure you share us with friends, family, enemies, anybody you feel like can enjoy the podcast we put out on a weekly basis, especially being 2 times a week during football season. We'd love if you can do that. And then last but not least, if you can follow us on Twitter and or X, whatever you'd like to call it, at JB Sports Pod is the podcast handle, at Javante Boozer is my handle, and at Jace Boozer 1 is Jace's handle. And I can't hand it over to Jace to finish off the pod, so I will do it myself. So have a great day, have a great night, happy holidays, y'all, and we will see you guys next week. Bye.